Thank you, Deep. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I've had the pleasure of being in the leadership coaching space for over 20 years, really felt all across the world. Early in my career as a coach, I volunteered to support the Institute of Coaching based at Harvard Medical School and McLean Hospital. And I'm proud to say that my volunteering turned into a role. So I'm now the executive director of the Institute of Coaching based at McLean Hospital in the Mass General Brigham ecosystem in Boston, and also an affiliate at Harvard Medical School. During that time, I became a faculty appointed member of Harvard Medical School and continued working as a leadership coach. So my primary focus is on coaching, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about what you're doing with Sherlock, because I think there's huge opportunities in the space that AI is bringing to the world of coaching today.
Thank you, Jeff. So with that, I will quickly introduce myself. I am the co-CEO, chairman, and chief mentor of Sherlock SuperCoach. It's an AI coaching platform. And yes, Jeff, like you, I bring to the table in our conversation about 2 decades of pure executive and corporate coaching experience. And looks like I've clocked over 7,000 hours in 2 decades of pure coaching. So today, then, what we're going to talk about is, I think we could start with the theories versus coaching in motion. I'd like to start with that.
You know, there was a time when a very typical coaching engagement would be very structured, so that you had very specific goals that were determined sometimes by the boss, whoever was the buyer of the coaching, or by the HR department. And there was a particular framing that whether it's set up through the International Coach Federation or through any other coaching body, that the focus was on goal setting and then action and then reflection and then change. And in some ways that has retained its value, and I think it's still operable in many situations. But the benefits that we are now seeing in what you're calling coaching in motion is that there are now tools like AI tools, Sherlock for being an example, that enable a coach dynamic to be much more in real time and ongoing. And it's more like real life. You know, the reality is that whether you're a senior leader or an up-and-coming leader, you're dealing with situations that are constantly changing, constantly in flux. And so whatever your boss or your HR department determined was your pivotal goal for success at a particular point in time, let's say January 2025, your goal for the year, it may make perfect sense for about a week, and then something else comes up. Or, you know, there are a number of disruptions, as we're very well aware, in everything that we're dealing with in today's world. And then the requirements for being successful in a team leader role or a junior role or even a senior leader role are constantly asking you to be adapting, constantly asking you to reflect and change and update your goals and your behaviors according to the current situation. And that, in some ways, rubs against the traditional structured approach that coaching was designed when you and I entered the business, 20 years ago. And even though, as I said, it's still relevant, the more we can move toward what you're calling coaching in motion, which to my mind means coaching that is applicable in real-time dimensions, the more we can move in that direction, whether it's through artificial intelligence tools or through real coaching with humans, the more successful our clients will be. So I think many of us as leadership coaches have evolved our approach to coaching theory to being much more flexible, much more focused on the present moment, what is real for the client in that moment, not necessarily 6 months from now or 12 months from now or according to an engagement structure, but according to what's really in front of that particular leader at that time. And the best human coaches will adjust the narrative, the questions, their curiosity, their interpersonal dynamic with the client based on that real-time activity. But that is what's most exciting to me about the artificial intelligence space, because these new tools can either be an augment with human coaching, or they could operate independently. In fact, at some point, I think they will ultimately, at the junior level in scaling, as you said earlier, and we'll probably talk about that, they may become the primary driver of coaching modalities. But I think what you're pointing to is that it enables a great deal of flexibility in terms of how coaching is actually conducted in real time with the client.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings me to the point, Jeff, because you're right. In our times, there was a way we would coach, but then the environment has become very dynamic. The people work differently. Culture of organizations and the environment within organizations is very robust. And you're right, for a coach then, when you say the best coaches would probably calibrate or recalibrate, but then when we talk of best coaches, they're few in numbers, right? And to get there, I think is a journey for each coach. To get to mastery is a journey in itself, right? And when we just kind of early days, we still sharpening our saw and all of that. And we've seen, I've seen how I've grown in 2 decades and that many hours.